I am willing to sit down with the IOC, the USATF, the NCAA, with any of my international federations, even the Trump administration, Trump himself. If he wants to sit down with me and talk and have a human conversation and see me.
What would you say to President Trump? What would your message be?
I need some explanation as to why you want to completely eradicate us from society when we've done nothing wrong. And even if he wants to have a team to go around with me and see my day-to-day life and what I go through as a transgender female athlete, all for it.
How has life changed, or has life changed since President Trump's inauguration?
Oh my gosh. So I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm transgender, and I'm an athlete. Each of my identities is a target, especially in America. Prior to this set in stone administration, I woke up every day and I face adversaries when I leave my house. Now I wake up every day and I have to make sure that I make it home alive. It's really sad to see people going out of their way to make it known that you don't belong here.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So CNN hosted a transgender athlete, and this athlete was talking about Trump's executive orders and basically playing the victim. Of course, this person is claiming discrimination. This person is claiming to have been targeted, to have been treated unfairly, simply because we want women's sports to remain for females only. And this whole debate sparked a little bit of a back and forth between Riley Gaines and Piers Morgan. As you know, Piers Morgan has been very vocal about defending women's sports. He's spoken out about it, used his platform to create awareness and to call out the foolishness. However, Piers has a tendency to still insist on calling these trans athletes she, her, referring to them with female pronouns. And he was called out on it. And he was defending his decision to still use the she, her pronouns for these athletes. Riley Gaines even said that this hurts women. And I believe that to be true. My last video where I said that the term trans woman is not a good term for people who are defending women's sports, defending women's spaces, for people who believe there are only two genders. That perhaps we need to rethink the use of that very term because it's misleading. And it treats trans women as if they're different from men. And it gives the message that there are different types of women in terms of biology, and that's just not true. You're either male or female. It was CeCe Telfer. I mean, look at this person. I'm sorry, but come on. So CeCe Telfer was the first male athlete to win a women's NCAA championship, similar to Leah Thomas. Telfer took first place at the 2019 NCAA Division I Women's Track and Field Championships in the 400-meter hurdles. This was way before I started this channel. That is really disheartening to hear that. Telfer had an unsuccessful athletic career competing against men, of course. Ranking 390th. Then goes on to win an NCAA championship. Coincidence? So 390th in 2017 among all Division II male athletes. That's when Telfer decided to become a woman and compete against females, ultimately becoming the top athlete in the women's division after 1 year of hormone therapy. Oh, I thought the hormone therapy balances things out. But this person, clearly that didn't stop this person. That didn't stop this person from winning the NCAA championship, despite being a less than mediocre athlete. On paper, I mean, that's just fact. Competing against the women now, look what happens. And no doubt this person obtained scholarships and all sorts. I don't even want to think about it, but I would also assume this person was allowed in a locker room, which is a safe assumption to make because according to their new policy, they haven't banned transgender athletes from entering into the women's locker room. They haven't outright banned them. So yeah, even this new policy they've come up with still has a lot of issues. Telfer has used the same tactics that a lot of activists use to gaslight people, to lie to your face. Telfer has insisted at being at a disadvantage. Now, yeah, if you were competing against men, instead of coming 390th, you would probably be ranked 500 or something after being on hormones, after being on estrogen. Yeah, it will lower your performance against other men, but it certainly doesn't lower your performance against women, because women's testosterone levels are nowhere near the NCAA's limit, which was 10 nanomoles back then. Nowhere near that. Even women with high testosterone would have at most 2.4. Nowhere near the NCAA's limit for testosterone for these athletes, these male athletes. And obviously, like I always say, men and women are more than just hormones. We all know this. But the results, winning an NCAA championship, particularly after a poor career competing against males, directly contradicts that ridiculous claim. Exactly. I have no benefit. I'm on hormone suppression. It doesn't help. It's another disadvantage. Cis women are producing more testosterone than the average trans female. Lies. Why is the limit not way below 10 nanomoles then to be comparable to females? You can suppress it, and that's what it's for, is to suppress it, but it doesn't stop you from producing it. And even if the testosterone was lowered, this person still has a male body. Now listen to this person, the way she speaks to Telfer. So softly, because clearly, this is a vulnerable woman who has been victimized.
I wonder how you react, though, when you read that the Department of Education has written a letter to the NCAA suggesting that transgender women who have won titles and set records, they should be stripped.
If somebody's truly working or a part of the Department of Education, they would be smart and educated enough to know that something like that that's not how history works, and that's not how the direction of progressiveness works, and you can't take back history.
Yeah, we can actually make sure that history is written accurately and reflects the truth, as opposed to it being based on a lie. So when they find out that athletes were doping the whole time, they readjust the records. They strip that athlete of all the accolades and medals that they won and correct things. So when people look back on who won such championships, there's a more accurate depiction. And yeah, we're not going to rewrite history to eliminate this individual, because we want to remember the time when men were allowed to compete in women's championships and go on to steal those championships. We want to remember that time. You know why? So we don't repeat that ever again. This cannot be erased. Absolutely. But we can acknowledge the truth that the woman who was the fastest, the female athlete who was the fastest, is the rightful winner. So all it's going to say in the history books is that you were stripped of the title because you are a male athlete and you should not be competing in the women's NCAA championship. You should not be competing in the women's division. That was a mistake. History involves a lot of mistakes, in case you haven't noticed. We can go back in history and see where mistakes were made. That's why we don't repeat those mistakes. And this, allowing this male athlete to hold a women's NCAA title, clearly is a mistake, which is an understatement. So if the NCAA doesn't want to look even more foolish and be even more on the wrong side of history, they really do need to be looking into this and correcting their records. Telfer is right about one thing when Telfer said that's not how the direction of progressiveness works. Correct. Progressives will never stop trying to push their radical agenda, and once they gain a victory, they don't stop. They can only push ahead further. That's why it's important for Trump and Republicans to put a stop to the transgender in women's sports madness immediately. So Riley Gaines said, "You can't take away the records and titles that I stole from deserving women. That's not how history works," quote unquote. Mediocre man who has a hobby of trampling on women. In fact, the NCAA has a history of vacating championships for a lot less than being a male competing in women's sports. Exactly. It's not as if this hasn't happened before, where they've had to revoke titles and revoke medals. That's nothing new. Over 20 schools have had NCAA championships retroactively revoked for violations. Well, there you have it. One could easily argue there is no violation greater than a male winning a women's championship. It's not only the correct move to vacate those titles, but the only choice. I agree. So Piers Morgan wrote this, obviously in good faith, because he supports women's sports. He said, absurd CNN interview just now with trans sprinter CeCe Telfer, treating her like some poor victim of Trump's ban on trans athletes in women's sports. She was born male, looks and speaks like a man, runs like a man, and is smashing women's records. She's not a victim, she's a cheat. CeCe Grover, you know, she's involved in the Australian case. Unfortunately, she lost but is now appealing. She said, absurd CNN interviewer just now with male sprinter CeCe Telfer, treating him like some poor victim of Trump's ban on trans athletes in women's sports. He was born a male, remains male. He is one. He's not a victim. He's a cheat. So she corrected Piers' statement. So Riley Gaines said, he was born a male, looks and speaks like a man, runs like a man, and is smashing women's records. He's not a victim. He's a cheat. Clear language, please, at Piers Morgan. So Piers reposted what she said, and he said, I don't have a problem with trans women calling themselves she. I only have a problem if they seek to erode women's rights and fairness, equality and safety. So Riley rightly responded, saying, using she does in fact harm women. The removal of clear sex-based language harms all actually. It's forcing people to deny that sex is relevant. It's a lie, and it loosens everyone's grip on reality. We communicate with words. They create the images in our heads. They have to mean something, not to be used to confuse or lead to draw the wrong conclusion. Wonderfully put, wonderfully put. And then she said, I thought it was kind and respectful to use preferred pronouns at first. Then the phrase, her penis? That says it all, doesn't it? Then the phrase, her penis, came out of my mouth when describing the naked man who exposed himself in our locker room. Never again. And you know what? I do remember back in the day, she did used to use she, her pronouns to describe that person. Yeah. So I found this interesting. I found this very interesting. He mentions Caitlyn Jenner. Maybe he thought this is a gotcha. He thought this was a gotcha. He's like, out of interest, Riley, do you call Caitlyn Jenner he or she? So guess who responds? Caitlyn Jenner. So Caitlyn says she uses male pronouns when speaking about me. While I prefer female pronouns, that is entirely her prerogative and decision. I do not believe in forcing people to use specific language. And to the people that use my preferred pronouns, like you, Piers Morgan, I appreciate it, but I don't lose sleep over people using the male ones, if that's what they want to do. Okay, that's fair enough to me. My 2 cents. You're not more virtuous for using she, her pronouns to describe these cheats and men who expose themselves to women. So yeah, very interesting. Piers, I don't know. I agree with him on a lot of things. There's a lot of things I disagree with him on. Every so often, his liberalism comes out because he is a liberal. So that's where the clashes occur, I would say. So yes, Telfer needs to be the first to be stripped of the NCAA championship, the women's NCAA Division I championship title. Let's start with Telfer, shall we? NCAA. And fix your policy and make sure that these athletes are outright banned from the women's locker room and are not allowed to compete unattached or attached to a school in the women's division. That has to be cleared up immediately. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.